Nisam Bulavinaka, great to be back with you once again on Speak Your Mind on Gold FM, only the classic hits. This is your only classic hits radio station in Fiji. This is our live radio talkback, and we have delayed coverage shown on FBC TV every Tuesday nights and Wednesday mornings. And we have the pleasure of our guest being in the studio today, Dr. Cragun Bulavinaka, once again.
Good morning, is it?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, yeah. Nice to be here. Nice to be here.
Well, it's great to have you back again. I know the last time we had a really good talk back. I mean, it's always great to have doctors because people, depend on you for all the great information. But Dr. Cragun, I know besides being a chiropractor, can you just introduce what other specialities do you have as a doctor?
Oh, well, I could say I like to specialize in head and neck injuries, things like that.
Oh.
But migraine headaches. But sports medicine rehabilitation is really a forte of mine too.
Okay.
But nutrition and how can you separate them? They're all so important. Of course, spinal function is what chiropractors are known for, spinal function. Everyone knows in medicine that the nervous system controls everything.
Yes, we do know that.
The spinal column affects all the nervous system, so that's why it is so effective on helping people with sometimes unimaginable problems with realigning the spine, taking the pressure off the spinal nerves, and the function comes just like turning a light on, the flow of energy. So it's pretty great profession.
Yes, I mean, I always recognize chiropractors, but I believe that doctors in the world, they don't like to recognize chiropractors. Is that true?
But you have to understand that the doctors in the world, they have been fed a line of lies all through medical school. The pharmaceutical investment business, which constructs, controls, and manipulates the whole field of health in the world. They're the ones that educate the medical system. The hospitals are owned by them, the medical schools, everybody. So they don't like competition.
Oh, I see.
They want to sell their drugs. They're not interested in cures for anything because that would cut their profits, because they treat the symptoms of your problems very well. Very well. And, it's like, we'll talk about it later on the show, heart disease, which is the biggest killer in the world. Now, they treat the symptoms of that disease incredibly well. We're talking about the smartest people on the planet here. So they can make products that will do something, but at the expense of something else happening. For instance, heart disease kills 17 million people a year, heart disease and stroke.
And even in Fiji.
And huge amounts in Fiji,
Huge amounts in Fiji, yes.
And we have known since, 1990, 92, what the primary cause of heart disease is. And it's certainly not high cholesterol. Like all the medical established people believe. There's thousands of medical doctors that don't believe that lie, because they look on the other side of the coin, and they find a whole different story than they've been told and fed in school by the people that educate them. They're told that, vitamin C has nothing to do with heart disease. That's silly. Well, it's not silly, because some of the top cardiologists know that. It does have everything to do with it. Matter of fact, it's the primary cause, universal primary cause for all cardiovascular disease.
Lack of vitamin C?
Lack of vitamin C and micronutrients.
And micronutrients, okay.
Minerals and things like that, but primarily vitamin C. And just to quickly set the stage for what will come later,
yes,
vitamin C is essential. Essential means you have to have it, or something serious is going to happen. It's essential for formation of connective tissue, which holds our body together, and it's essential for the connective tissue around the arteries, gluing the fibers together so that they're tight, no leaks. But if you don't have enough vitamin C, you get millions of little cracks form. Millions of them. And the body sends a signal to liver, says, we got to stop these cracks, man. If they get bigger, we're in trouble. So the message is heard in the liver, and the liver says, and they say, please, can you send us some of that bad cholesterol, that LPA, we call it lipoprotein A, that has a sticky protein on it that has a homing device for the cracks. And they produce millions of these fat, lipid, bad cholesterol particles. They're really mobile repair units. They're not bad.
Oh.
They're not bad at all. They have been requested by the artery wall to please come save the ship. And they patch the crack. And this goes, as long as you have vitamin C deficiency, you will have cracks continue. And the liver will keep producing it. Now when the arteries get blocked, because year after year after year, not enough, the plaques, cholesterol and fat plaques get thicker and thicker and thicker, narrows the artery. Now, what's the body going to do with a narrowed artery? It has to get the blood through, so it's going to pump higher pressure to get the blood to the source where it needs to go.
Right.
Because it has to have the blood. And they give you blood pressure lowering devices, pills, to lower the blood pressure. Now, what do you think of the organ that's now going to get less blood? This is a factor you need to think about. And then you give you a huge amount of the biggest selling drug in the world. What is it? Cholesterol-lowering drug? This is the fabricated market. It's a fraud. It's a hoax. And we have slowly been misled into believing we got a belief system in it now.
So you drink that cholesterol-lowering drug. Is that right?
Well, you take a pill.
That's what they tell you to do.
Yeah, and you know what? It does lower the cholesterol.
Oh, okay.
But can you blame, if cholesterol is being requested to be there and block the artery, if you try and blame the cholesterol, it'd be like blaming the policeman. You've called the policeman up, you've got a murder going on, the police, they show up, now you blame them for the murder. That's how ridiculous this is. And I want the public to get that point very clear. This is as great a comparison with the severity of the problems you can get. Blaming cholesterol for heart disease is like blaming the cop for the murder because he's at the scene of the crime.
Yes.
So how do you reverse it? How do you stop it? Well, obviously you can't treat anything. You can't fix anything unless you know what's causing it. And up until now, we haven't known. But in 1990 and 92, we found out, and the pharmaceutical investment business suppressed this, and they still are, because they don't want you to know. So if you know the cause, then you treat it. What's the cause? Lack of vitamin C. Not sufficient amount of vitamin C. Suboptimal would be 60 milligrams a day, and that's what they say. Oh, that's enough to prevent scurvy.
But not
but not the cracks,
disease.
not the cracks from forming.
All right, Dr. Cragun will be back in a moment on Gold FM, only the classic hits. Speak your mind. Gold FM, only the classic hits. Speak your mind. Warm welcome back to the show. Great to be with you. Thanks a lot for your company. And we've got Dr. Cragun with us, and he's going to give us some really good information. This is about how to treat burns. I know, but first, Dr. Cragun, would you like to just mention how burns are, like in the country? Do we have a lot of burns? How are they caused and all that before we go on to the treatment?
Sure. I mean, everybody knows burns are probably the most common thing there is. Every housewife burns herself who knows how many times a day, depends on what she does. A factory worker, a welder, somebody, a chef, kids playing with matches, accidents, burns.
Skulls and
and how are they treated? Well, what do? If you know a fire walker from Banga that has a gift, he can help you.
Right.
Or if you know grandma's recipe that for burns, maybe that can help you too. But hey, I'm sorry. When you have a burn, you don't think about anything. Sometimes you do stupid things like put butter on it, some coconut oil, and of course you don't know what you're doing, but you're desperate for something.
Yes.
Or you take a painkiller, or whatever, because burns, they burn you. And when you're burned, the tissue is destroyed. Okay? And when severe burns over a lot of part of the body, what gets you in trouble, especially children, is that if enough skin is burned, what happens is the destruction of the tissue. All the cells are exploded. What does the body do with that? It tries to clean it up. And the lymphatic system, the venous system is quickly trying to take that stuff away, break it down and clean it up. And it's in the bloodstream. And problem is, when enough of it gets in the bloodstream, the filter of the body, which is the kidney, starts to get backed up, gets blocked. And if it's severe enough, that's what you usually die from, is kidney failure. And that's the way it is. So you would want to naturally find a way to prevent the continued breakdown of the cells and the release of all this junk that has to be cleaned up. Because the destructions, veins, lymphatics, tissue, everything, it's just like I say, it's exploded.
Okay.
And what that's going to do is, if you had salt water and fresh water on one side, what happens is, and a membrane in between, what's going to happen is the salt water is going to suck the fresh water through to try and dilute the salt water. It will bring it all over if it can. And the pressure that it exerts and the sucking pressure is called osmotic pressure. Now picture this in the human being. Picture this as a burn. Picture this as a burn. I'll get into a story in a second, but let me just do the basics. You got a burn, really bad burn. The tissue's destroyed. And you know that dead tissue is like salt. It's going to absorb fluid from your body.
Okay.
Because it trying to dilute the irritation. It's trying to bring in circulation. It's trying to just bring fluid in to neutralize the acidity, and it just because, as it does that, of course, the tissue swells.
Right.
That's bad because that swelling puts pressure on the circulation trying to get in, and nothing can get in, nothing can get out. It just starts to swell, and you got the blister formation. Okay.
Okay.
So that's a serious thing. So how do you stop that? Well, I'm going to tell you about the Fiji Shellker burn treatment, and then we'll get into this a little bit further because I don't want to jump the gun. I want to show you. I want to show everybody. You don't need to know all the things I'm telling you. You need to see this cartoon pictorial that a great artist in the United States, Anthony Aguilera, is doing for the world, for Fiji, and it's going to be a sequence of cartoon characters. And out in the backwoods somewhere with a little family, 3 children, one's 4, one's 7, one's 10, and their parents are getting up early in the morning, and they're going to leave the children alone. And they know that they'll be safe. Come on, this is Fiji. You know, you don't have to worry about the stuff you worry about in other countries. You don't have to worry about bites or snake bites or people or anything. You don't worry. So they're happy. They're going to go away. They know the kids are going to be okay. And the kids, of course, they're beyond themselves because they don't have the parents around to tell them what to do.
Yes.
You know, and
exactly.
So you can see these little faces in the whole scene. You know, we're going to get as much emotion in it as possible. And the next thing, the little kids are dancing around, and the little girl is standing next to the little boy. The little girl's 4. There's 2 boys that are 7 and 10, and the 10-year-old bumps the stove, and the scalding water comes flashing down on this poor little 7-year-old, and you can imagine the pain. Imagine the distress and the shock these other kids are having. What do you do? Look at, parents are gone. And the little girl has a little light bulb, little cloud in her head, and it shows a chicken sitting on some eggs. And she knows where that is. And she runs out. She goes and gets the eggs from under the chicken, brings them in, and cracks the egg open, separates the yolk from the white, and the 2 little kids, of course the kids screaming, it shows the screaming, they're starting to coat this egg white all over the burn, chest, back, and arm. And they have a fan on the kid to dry it, because you want to dry this egg white. You want to dry it. And as soon as it gets dry, they put another coat on. And they fan it. As soon as it gets dry, they put another coat on. And the little boy stops crying, and he's whimpering, and he kind of falls asleep. Because, you know, shock and trauma is hard on kids, and they will fall asleep. And while he's sleeping, he shows him putting another coat on and fanning him the whole time.
So you do that quite a bit?
Yeah, you do that throughout the day. Well, as soon as the kid goes to sleep, they do that. And when he wakes up, they put another coat on, because when you move, egg white cracks, and you want to keep it sealed.
Yes.
Okay? And so the next scene is them out playing in the yard. All 3 of them. And they'll stop and put some more on there. And they'll play again, and they'll stop, and then the sun goes down, and they go to bed, and they put some coating over the little kid again and fan him. And when they wake up in the morning, they get up and wash the egg white off, and there's no burn there. It's all pink. It's all pink.
But there's no like water
Yeah,
retention.
there's no blisters. There's nothing there. And the parents come through the door, and here's these 3 little kids smiling at the parents. The parents have no idea what happened.
Right.
Okay?
Yes.
That's the Fiji burn treatment. And that's going to go out to every single city in the world with a PDF file, something they can download, print out, make posters for their whole city. I don't care where it is. You don't need to read it. But that's the Fiji burn treatment, and that's going to enter the world shortly.
Okay, so it's the egg white. You have to separate.
Let me
the
show
egg
you.
white.
I got something right
Yes,
here.
please, that'd be
Okay,
good.
this is a hot iron, and little kid has just put his arm on it. You know, burned really bad, with severe burn. The mother goes to the refrigerator, gets an egg, separates the yolk from the egg.
That's all you'd have to
Okay,
do, right.
and then she immediately paints it all over the child, and she's got a fan if she's lucky enough to have a fan, and
Okay.
she's got the fan going, you know, and that kid is screaming, and you just keep doing that. It dries. You do it again in about a half an hour, and it dries. Let it stay an hour or so, and put another coat on. Leave it for a while, but when you see that it's flaking off, cracking, you put some more on it, and you do that several times through the day,
Yeah.
and once before you go to bed.
Wow.
And you wake up in the morning, and it might look like melted plastic because it's coated.
Yeah.
You wash it off, and underneath, there you go. It's pink. You might have, if depending on how bad the burn was, you might have to put it on during that whole day too.
Right.
Okay.
Depending on the burn.
Yeah, depending on how severe. But there won't be any hair there. If you have hair, there's no hair because it's been burned off.
Right.
Okay, so that's and what happens next? We were getting into it before we took the other break.
Right.
What happens next is, as the egg white dries, remember this is a burn. We're trying to cool it, and the fan is going to cool it. The
Okay,
egg white.
I'm so sorry, Dr. Cragun. We'll continue with
Yeah,
that
yeah.
as soon as we get
No-
back
no
soon
problem.
on Gold FM, only the classic hits. Speak your mind. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind on Gold FM, only the classic hits. And we continue with our interview. This is Dr. Cragun, who showed us an amazing way how to cure a burn. So, like you said when we left off before the break, Dr. Cragun, can you just explain the logic of using the whites of the egg?
Like I was saying, the egg white is cold if you get it from a refrigerator. You want to cool the burn, and the fan will cool the burn. But you want to dry the egg white. Now remember, that's a pure protein. There's no bacteria. There's nothing. This is like a sterile condition. And when you coat it, you want it to dry. Now, when something is drying, it's even cooling more. That's just evaporation. And this will act like an osmotic pressure thing, like I was telling you. This is very constant. You were talking about salt drawing moisture, right? Well, this is dry protein, which is incredibly high osmotic pressure. It will suck the fluid right through your skin.
Oh, I see.
Look at your face
right.
masks that women use. They have a lot
Yes,
of...
I need to use
and
them.
it tightens your skin, right?
Yes.
But we have a pure protein. We're cooling it, and what happens is, you've seen a wick that draws fluid up and it burns?
Yes.
Well, that's kind of what's happening here.
Okay.
Except this is a flat surface, and this is a huge wick, and it's pulling fluid out of the damaged skin as fast as it can be produced.
I see.
And it's evaporating, and it's also being blown away as fast as it evaporates.
So
It's
that's
being
why
blown-
you keep fanning.
You keep
it.
fanning it, boy, because you want that thing. You want to get as much of that fluid in, because underneath that killed skin is that salt, and it's drying moisture, water, fluid into that thing. And if it swells up, you got a blister.
Right.
If it swells up, it puts pressure on the circulation that's trying to get in and heal it. So we'll keep that swelling down, and we'll keep the circulation on the outside keep coming in, taking the debris away. Gradually, you don't have a continued destruction of the tissue, so there's a minimal amount of this breakdown of tissue. Minimal amount floating around the bloodstream for the kidneys to filter. So you're keeping that to as minimum as possible because you don't want that kidney to back up. So what happens is it pulls it out. The skin doesn't separate. Skin's still sealed, and you don't have bacteria in there. You're not going to get inflammation and swelling. You're not going to get an infection, and the scar tissue will be to a minimum. And if you do this like that, like I said on the little boy, that little Fiji burn treatment, you wash it off, and it will just be. It might have 90% of it is better. But you might have a third-degree burn where it's etched the skin down into the core, but that's not the whole thing. And so, how did I find this out?
Yes, that's what I wanted to ask you.
That's an important thing.
Question,
in chiropractic school, we had these people from all over the world there, man. Los Angeles College of Chiropractic is the premier chiropractic school on the planet. It's like the Harvard of chiropractic schools.
Yes.
And so I got this guy from Switzerland, a good friend of mine now. We made friends, and he told me about how they treated burns in his place, because he had a lot of welders in his family. And they would burn themselves, for sure, 6 or 7 times a day. And their remedy was they got a raw egg and put it in a tea canister,
right?
Put it on the belt, went to work. And when they burned themselves, they cracked it open, did what I did a few times, put their egg in the refrigerator and went back to work and took a break and did it throughout the day. That just was that part of their life. And I said, well, that's pretty remarkable. But, you got nothing personal involved there. You can't quite relate to it. Until one day, I'm sitting there, I'm working on my Triumph motorcycle. I had a beautiful Triumph 500 motorcycle, and I'm tuning it up. And I'm revving it up, and exhaust pipe is just red.
Oh, dear.
Okay?
Yes.
And I slipped, and this bike fell on me.
Oh.
And the red hot exhaust pipe just went right down above my ankle diagonally. And I couldn't hardly get the bike off me. It was like I was being branded.
Yes.
And I got it off, and oh man, the pain is,
Too much.
Too much. And I settled down and I said, what am I going to do? Well, basically, what can you do about a burn? See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Basically, people say, well, I'm not going to go to the doctor's office. I'm not going to go to the hospital because I know what are you going to do? Band-Aid? Most people treat it themselves somehow. Severe ones, they have to get hospitalized. They need medication. They need that emergency care.
Yes.
Most people know. So about I got back on the bike and I had to finish the job. Don't want to be a crybaby. So I was finishing it up and I slipped again. And this thing fell over on me above the other one about 5 inches up towards the knee, and it was a worse burn.
Oh,
and
dear.
I'm just beyond myself, man.
Twice.
And then I'm sitting, and then the light bulb goes off, and I listened to Claude. So I said, well, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. Went to the refrigerator, did this, and coated the last one, the worst one.
Right.
I didn't want to do the first one because I had to see. I had to see. So I coated it and did the thing and put the fan on and did it throughout the day and went to bed and did the same thing I told you about in the thing. And I woke up in the morning and here's this sheet of melted plastic.
Oh.
It wasn't melted, it was egg white hardened.
Right.
And I washed it off and it was pink. And all the hair was gone on my leg, but it was just pink. I put some more on, of course, because it was really a bad burn. The other one's blistered and infected, and I have a scar today from it.
Okay, so you wanted to compare.
Yeah, I had to.
Just to prove yourself a point, yeah.
See, and that point, I hit really hard with anybody, let's say a hospital or medical doctor, somebody doesn't know. They say, can you prove that? They say, listen, man, if you can get right on that burn, if your patient calls you, it's an emergency, they got a burned child, what are you going to do? Ask them to drive 45 minutes to get here? It's too late then. You got to tell that woman,
really
Father,
quickly.
Go to the refrigerator, get that egg white, put it on there, get that fan on there, then bring the child in.
Right.
All right.
Straight away. That's really important. Gold FM, only the classic hits. Speak your mind. We'll be back shortly. Speak Your Mind, Gold FM, only the classic hits. Thank you a lot for your company. And Dr. Cragun, he's just shared with us something really interesting. I mean, it's always good to find out how you can treat something bad at home. But like you said, you know, you have to do it straight away. And I like the way you separated the white from the yolk. It just looked like it was so easy. I don't think it's that easy.
I'll be an Australian master chef now.
Okay, you might change into a chef soon. But yeah, so that's really interesting. So, Dr. Cragun, if anyone is listening right now who'd like to say something or ask a question, you can call 3220907, or if you have a Digicel phone, 77-32907. And yes, I'm sure Dr. Cragun would be more than happy to talk to you. But let's continue, Dr. Cragun. I know that there's some other things that you'd like to discuss with us, so you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to discuss an event. This is a true story. This is a story about a legal situation that happened that nobody found out about. And the reason I want to say this, tell this story, is because the same people that didn't want you to know this happened are the same people that don't want you to know that nutritional things like vitamin C, micronutrients, essential nutrients, can cure disease, and we already know they can cure disease. And after I tell the story, I'll tell you an exact story from the horse's mouth about how it went into the field of medicine, because we're all affected by this. So what it is you know, genocide is a bad thing. There's nothing worse in humanity than genocide.
Right.
Okay. Doesn't matter who does it, what it's done for, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, you think of professional genocide.
Okay.
Okay, that's equally ugly. Okay, now, what happened in?
Okay, just very quickly, Dr. Cragun, like someone might be listening who doesn't really know what genocide is. Just quickly,
yeah,
just briefly,
just
yes.
wiping out a race or a people or an idea or some concept because you'll gain from it.
Right.
You want all their land. Wipe them out. They don't. You want them on, or you want all the business for yourself. So do anything you want. Kill them. Wipe them out. It's ruthless.
Thank
okay?
you. Right.
Okay. So in 1987, there was a trial called the Wilkes Trial, and this trial was a monumental trial, and it involved the American Medical Association and the American Hospital Association and the American Chiropractic Association. And in it, the American Medical Association and the American Hospital Association were convicted of conspiracy. And that's a very, very severe charge. And the conspiracy charge was this. I'll read, practically read it. The judge in charge of the first federal case, she said, you know, we shouldn't even have this trial. You're guilty by your own admission. Your intentions were this. And she says, I'm going to read to the court what your intentions were. She says, if we don't do something about the growing profession of chiropractic medicine, we're going to lose a lot of business in the future. Therefore, we will do whatever it takes, no matter how much money. They spent over $500 million over a 15-year period. No matter how long it takes, this lasted 15 years, no matter what we have to do, legal or illegal, we will, and the judge read this, we will eliminate chiropractic medicine from North America and the rest of the world.
Oh, this is 1987.
That is professional genocide.
Okay, if you excuse me, Dr. Cragun, I think we have a caller. Just a second. Gold FM, how may I help you?
Hi, it's Prakash from Fiji Museum.
Do you have a question for Dr. Cragun?
No, ma'am. I'll just call.
That wasn't for you, Dr. Cragun. So sorry about that. There was someone else. But yes,
So-
about what you were saying.
And see, the were found guilty, and they appealed to the U.S. Court of Appeal, the highest court in the land, and the Court of Appeals said, "We find you guilty of everything you've been charged with, but we want to make a couple comments here. You did this because you wanted all the business for yourself." Now that's the U.S. The highest court in the land telling them it's all about the money. You wanted all the money for yourself.
Oh.
You wanted all the business for yourself. And he said, another thing, you said that you were trying to protect the public from chiropractic medicine. And she said, that couldn't be further from the truth.
Oh.
And this is the same tactics these pharmaceutical investment business people do to keep you away from vital information, that natural information, natural health, vitamins and minerals, and how to cure diseases. They actually have been doing a good job of keeping this information from the public, making it illegal to talk about vitamins and minerals and cures for diseases.
Oh my gosh.
Making it illegal, and they've recruited the UN, and the Germans have been leading a 40-year campaign to eliminate all natural medicine and all vitamins and minerals for the treatment of any diseases from all UN nations. That's a fact, because they want it all to be pharmaceutically oriented. Look at this country. I'm the only chiropractor in this country. What happened in that court case, they were found guilty and all that. But what happened? What happened? Nothing happened. You know why nothing happened? These guys control the media, they control medicine, they control science. They're the largest political contributors to U.S. politics. These guys run the world, and they're not interested in anything. They're an investment business.
They're not interested in a cure.
They're not a health business. If you got a cure for something, you don't need their blood pressure medication. You don't need bypass surgery. You don't need all this stuff. You don't need to have a stroke, and you don't need to have a heart attack, because we've proven it. Rath Health Alliance has proven this. And here's what they did. 1990-92, Dr. Rath and Dr. Linus Pauling, one of the greatest scientists ever lived, discovered that vitamin C had a lot to do with disease, cancer and heart disease.
Okay, well, we'll be back for more on Gold FM, only the classic hits. Speak your mind. We may go into cancer after this. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind on Gold FM, only the classic hits, and Dr. Cragun, who is talking to us and telling us about how that you had been challenged in a court of law, chiropractors, that you weren't doing the right things, and you have also said that because of the pharmaceutical industry, it's the most money-making industry in the world. So they're not really interested in cures, but just in giving out drugs. Is that right?
Yeah, well, that's right. And you want all the medical doctors, you want them to hear this information, because they need to be curious enough to look at what's on the other side of the coin. Dr. Cragun is not a fool. He's well educated. Obviously, he knows more than a lot of these people. So let's open up your mind to taking care of our patients rather than filling the pocketbooks of the pharmaceutical industry, because treating symptoms all your life as a doctor must be depressing.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you implement some of these new things that have evolved? And here's what happened. And Dr. Rath, he's a medical doctor. Mm-hmm. He's incredible. He's spoken all over the world. He organized the Rath Institute of Cellular Medicine.
There's a conspiracy against him.
Well, yeah, because he represents a spearhead of what's going to crash the pharmaceutical empire.
Oh.
Yeah, and because it's the truth. Mm-hmm. And these guys control everything. So he when he found made this discovery about connection between natural things, like, for instance, he discovered that why don't animals have heart attacks and strokes? He started wondering about that. And he started comparing human blood with animal blood. He found out that animals have lots of vitamin C in them because they produce their own in their liver.
That's how they were made.
Yeah, they make it from blood sugar in the liver. It comes out as vitamin C. And they don't have what we call it bad cholesterol. We call it lipoprotein A, LPA. And humans, the more vitamin C they have in the system, the less LPA they have, less bad cholesterol they have. But animals don't have any. So he started figuring out that animals don't make it because they don't need it. And then he found out that why do we make it? Well, because we need it for some reason. So what happens when you have low vitamin C levels, the arteries, again, they start to crack and come apart. And when you add vitamin C to the diet, they get closed up, and the body releases all the plaque. Eventually, over a year, 2-year period, it goes away. What's that going to do to bypass surgery?
So that's the impurities.
That's just the gunk, that the cholesterol and fat that's built up over the years.
So naturally, vitamin C flushes it out of your system. Is that right, Dr. Cragun?
The body will flush it out of the system because it's not necessary for the cracks are filled by the vitamin C now.
Right.
The tissue's rebuilt.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Yeah, so it's vitamin C is vital for that. And it's vital for a lot of things. You can and here's what they did. He approached the pharmaceutical giants in the United States and the world. He says, here, we got this great discovery. This is great for humanity. We can save millions of lives. Can't you contribute and help for the research? And they said, we like Dr. Pauline. We like all the research, but we're not going to help you because it will compete with our own products. Now, they knew. And immediately after the meeting, Dr. Rath said they started a big push with the FDA, pharmaceutical investment business, and the FDA made a big push to start to try and restrict and outlaw information regarding natural cures for diseases and stuff. And they immediately, since they controlled all the raw materials for the production of vitamins and minerals, what they did was they inflated the price like 10, 20, 30 times higher because they wanted to capitalize. They saw the future. They're going to want to make money, right? So they raised the price, made the things so expensive that now you can't afford it. Real strategy here.
Right.
And they got busted in the United States for this. They convicted, and they had to pay something like a $5 billion fine for price fixing.
Right, right.
But they made $400 billion. So just a slap on the wrist, because, what are you going to do? And this is what happens with all the lawsuits they get against their products. Something that, like a painkiller.
Yeah.
Vioxx.
Right.
They found that after a year, 40,000 people were killed with heart attacks after taking this stuff. They took it off the market, of course, but we're talking about your mother. We're talking about people. And it's just like a figure of 40,000 people. Doesn't sound like much unless you're a member of that clan.
Right. And Dr. Cragun, like cancer, we've got a high number also around the world.
Okay.
And I mean, it's been going since, I can remember, but there's no progress really in curing it.
There was a breakthrough in that too.
Okay.
And if I have time, I'll tell you that. And then because Dr. Rath and the Research Institute, they found how to block cancer.
Okay, so was that with something natural again?
Yeah.
I mean, that is so good because, natural, I reckon, is positive. It's a good way to go.
The research showed that since the drug companies wouldn't sponsor it, they had private funding to do this research. And in 2002, they approached the USA Today, March 8, 2002. You can look it up. And the lawyers for the USA Today, they didn't want to print it, but they had all the research. It was like 100%, so they printed it.
Right. This is for cancer.
Breakthrough in cancer, we can block every form of human cancer.
Wow. So this is through the nutrients?
That's on the newspaper, the biggest circulating newspaper in the world.
Yeah.
Okay. And what happened the next day, the AMA or whatever, the pharmaceutical people, whatever, they got on to every media outlet to make sure they never, ever
printed that
produced
story
anything
again.
with that organization again.
Okay, man, I'm really sorry, Dr. Cragun. We've already run out of time. But just before we finish, so what was it? What was the nutrient to help in cancer treatment?
Well, the breakthrough showed that in the National Institute of Health, just take a second, they were on call. They had to do something about it. They had to follow up the research. It was everybody found out about. So the National Institute of Health, the biggest research institute in the world, went to work 3 years after the story came out because they knew that they had to do it. They didn't want to.
Okay.
But they wanted to be able to say at one time that they were there too 20 years later, and nobody listened. Well, they did the research.
Right.
They got the research done, and they put it in, I think it was Metabolic Disease Journal that nobody reads,
Right.
and put it in an archive.
Right, right.
Okay? But it said vitamin C selectively kills cancer cells.
Oh, my goodness.
Now, that's not the only thing. There's a lot of things.
Yeah.
Because cancer cells, something goes wrong with them. Something causes this problem. We're not talking about once it's formed, we want to stop it from spreading.
Right.
And what happens is cancer cells secrete an enzyme that digests connective tissue.
Oh, it eats it up.
Eats it up. That's how it gets through the body. And it can't go anywhere
I
unless
see.
it digests this connective tissue. We call it collagenase enzymes.
Right.
So what happens in liver, let's say you got a liver cancer. How's that going to spread? Well, it eats through the connective tissue, finds a capillary. How's it going to get into the capillary? It eats its way through the capillary. Now it floats around the bloodstream until it finds a narrower capillary, the lung, eats its way out and sets up a metastasis. That's metastasis. Now, we know we can block that with these natural compounds.
Okay, so just very quickly, the natural compounds, I think we are out of time right now. But just quickly, that's really interesting. Very short.
I hope people don't burn things in front of my house for this.
Oh, come on, they won't.
Just kidding.
Okay, so I know vitamin
This
C.
is a crazy story.
Vitamin C, what else?
Yeah, vitamin C. There's different amino acids. There's minerals. There's quite a few things that are important
That you need to ingest. Eat.
And if you want to block the cholesterol from going, there's a compound called lysine and proline, which are amino acids.
And then you can find this all in natural food.
Yeah, you can whole eggs, for instance, have a lot of important stuff in them. And they're not bad and they're not fattening like people think. This is the most complete protein source you can get.
Right.
So it's.
Well, I'm really sorry, Dr. Cragun. We'll have to end it here next time.
Again, cholesterol has almost nothing to do with heart disease. It's a result of vitamin C deficiency. It's the policeman, okay?
Perfect. Thank you for that. And we must keep that in mind, especially in our beloved nation where we have the crisis of NCDs, people dying, dropping dead from heart attacks really young, stroke, and all that. But next time we'll get Dr. Cragun back on, I'm sure. We'd love to have him back. Thank you for your Fiji burn treatment. That was wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Cragun.
You're welcome.
Binaka on Speak Your Mind. We'll talk to you next week. Nisamo de man.